Hey, yo, welcome to the Uncle Show. And whoa, today we've got something that's a bit of a classic. Today we're looking at the original RX-78 Gundam Model Kit. Kinda, sorta. Okay, not really. Let me explain. So very recently I was in Shenyang in China with my wife, visiting her family, and naturally, me being me, I had to check out the local figure and toy shops. I actually managed to see some pretty cool stuff out there. So kind of a mix of high ticket items, some stuff I've never heard of, and some much more questionable toys. One shop I went to was carrying this little fella for about 70 yuan, or roughly $10 US at the time of writing, alongside another model kit, which we'll take a look at another day. So move that aside. Funny thing is, I actually don't know much about Gundam as a franchise. I know certain characters, I played some of the games, and certain plot beats through pop cultural osmosis. I know it's highly influential, beautifully animated, and its fans like to go on and on about how the show really dives into the futility of war like it's the only mech anime that does it. Sure, I might watch it. I have seen some Gundam. I did watch SD Gundam Force back when I was a kid. That's everyone's favorite, right? I'm also thinking of watching Gundam Build Fighters for reasons, but obviously no big ties. So why did I get one? Well, it's because this is essentially a re-release of the OG model kit from 1980, just with certain benefits from modern production, such as colored plastic and snap-on connectors without glue required. And the thing is, the original Gundam model kits are pretty important in toy history. To kind of give an explanation, Mobile Suit Gundam debuted in 1979 as an anime produced by Sunrise Animation. It was bold and revolutionary for the time, with a very vibrant, if sometimes inconsistent animation style, grittier storytelling, and an epic scale. And it was not a success when it first arrived. See, most mecha anime at the time were aimed at young kids, and something like Gundam, which skewed a bit older, had a hard time finding an audience initially. Now, helping matters was the merchandise that was out for the show during its run. Originally, the company Clover Toys made figures to tie into the show, and they were very typical of something like those old Popey DX figures, or Shogun Warriors as some were called in the US. Very inaccurate to the show, kind of clunky, and very expensive apparently. However, Sunrise realized that with the popularity of model kits in the 1970s, there was a low-cost niche that could easily be filled with Gundam. Clover infamously said no, but Bandai, who had plenty of experience making model kits at that point, were reached out and they released the original Gundam model kit, unpainted and for the crazy low price of 300 yen, and it was very desirable for a lot of reasons. First off, while I could be wrong here, I think Gundam was one of the first model kits based on Japanese mecha. It's kind of hard to figure out if there were any before, but Gundam was definitely the one that made the idea popular, especially thanks to the timeless design of the original Gundam itself. Second, this was one of the first times in an anime, or really any cartoon franchise, trying to make toy or figure merchandise aimed at an older crowd, but at the same time was still approachable for younger kids. So even though Sunrise more so had older kids, teens, and adults in mind with Gundam model kits, younger kids could still have fun building one. And of course, it being 300 yen was practically nothing. It was a perfect recipe for success, and figures famously sold out crazy fast. And even 2 years after they first came out and the show was long gone, Bandai were happily still producing figures for Gundam with both the original and new scale sizes all coming out. They sold so well that around this time, there were compilations of the show's episodes re-released into movie theaters at the time to capitalize. And these movie showings were crazy successful, apparently to the point of worrying about potential riots, like was the Rick and Morty Szechuan sauce or something. Those movies grossed over 5.5 billion yen, or around $35 million, which, when you consider these movies are essentially best out compilations with some new animation here and there, that is crazy profit. And a few years later, the series Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam came out and was a huge hit, and since then, there's been no shortage of new shows, spin-offs, movies, disappointing video games, and of course, toys. And it all started with this. Kinda. Like I said, this is kind of a reimagining for the 45th anniversary of the franchise, so maybe the title is a big lie. But I'll tell you a truth right here. If you get subscribed and get notified, you'll not only see new reviews, but you can also tune into live streams where I film footage for future videos. Any super chats will also be featured in the video as well. Also, if you like the video, please give a like and comment. Your engagement helps support this channel. Now, back to the video. The build was overall easy and very satisfying. Honestly, I could see this kit being a great starting point for someone who's never experienced any kind of model kit like this before. The instructions were clear, everything was easy to take off and plug in. In fact, the only problem that occurred while building is I initially plugged in the shoulder the wrong way, and was so stuck I couldn't get it out. Not to worry, a little bit of warming up the plastic and I was eventually able to take it off and free it. And it must be said, there's a lot to be impressed by here. In comparison to the Clover toy, which was garish and a bit squanch, this is a lot more streamlined and sleek for the time, and in these proportions and colors, give off that samurai vibe they had in mind originally for the design of the mobile suit. Even if it weren't colored up already, I could see why this took off whereas the Clover toys didn't. In hindsight, the Clover toys, apart from its very tacked on gimmicks, didn't stand out a lot at the time from a lot of the other robot toys that came out from Popey, Bandai, or Takara. I don't have a Popey robot for comparison, but whereas those were around the 3,000 yen mark for the deluxe models with the fancy gimmickry, Clover's deluxe Gundams were around 5,800 yen and were a lot smaller and worse. Now, to be fair, they also did release a number of other Gundam toys, and only Gundams. They never made any proper size figures for the Zaku, it seems. Just some die-cast statues, so your play battles were gonna be just Gundam versus Gundam. And other companies like Popey and Takara were offering robot figures at way more affordable prices that were a lot better, and especially in the case of Popey's toys, actually resembled what was on screen, whereas Clover could barely get the Gundam consistent. Whereas for 300 yen, Bandai's original model kit with no colors and needing glue was a much better prospect. Reminder, the only other robot toy in that price range at the time were some of the smaller micro-change robots, and those didn't have nearly the size or articulation of this guy.
A couple notes about the articulation. We got a fully 360-degree rotating head. Oh, no. Be very careful with the antennae. They are very, very thin, it seems. We got T-pose at the arms, which is really nice. Rotating elbow, shoulder. Fully rotating shoulders. Got not quite 90 at the elbow, but still totally fine. And that fell off. Oops. Yeah, this is a model kit. It's not meant for heavy play. Oh no. Kind of look at, actually, if you can kind of look, the shoulder is connected by a ball joint actually, which is kind of advanced actually for the time. In fact, the wrist is kind of at a ball joint too, and is fully rotatable, which is really great for any kind of sword play action, as you can see. Just no waist rotation of any kinds. And then legs, they can kind of go forward and back, and there is some degree of knee rotation, but there's nothing really at the side, which is a bit disappointing. You know, these skirts, this is kind of a connection, so there's no moving them up. There is tilting at the ankle, but that's about it. One of the parts that I actually kind of wish was on a ball joint so that we could get a little bit more, rotation, but you gotta work with what we got. Yeah, I'm gonna have to glue that later. That's not gonna be fun. Turns out I actually did need a little bit of glue for this actually, so my bad. As far as accessories go, you get this rifle. I don't know what they call the rifles in the show. I want to say pulse rifle, but I think that's Transformers. And yeah, I didn't shave down these spots very well. They're scars of war, let's just say. You also get two swords. You get this one, which I think is sort of the sword before it gets all powered up. And then this one, which is, I believe, the sword when it is powered up. I'm a little disappointed. This is the one thing I'll ding the revival kit for, actually. I kind of wish this was painted, or at least was remolded to be two different colors of plastic, because otherwise it just kind of looks, you know, it doesn't exactly look like a beam saber. Though I suppose what you could do is this. If you have like those Transformers blast effect, you could just kind of balance it on there. Actually, due to the way its angles get out of the right angle. It actually looks like it's in motion. That's actually kind of cool. And finally, you get the shield, which this just kind of plugs into the hand like this. And of course, due to the articulation, you can kind of get it at a variety of different angles if it won't stop popping out of the socket. Come on, let's get back in there. There we go. And yeah, it's a nice little shield. It's a nice little shield, does the job, does really complete the look. It must be said, they really nailed the color scheme of the original Gundam. It's all primary colors and on white, but it really works. It's whenever I think of sort of red, white, yellow, and blue on a robot, it's impossible not to think of Gundam. It must be said, for the time especially, I imagine this would have felt remarkably high quality. Remember, a lot of those plastic model kits you got at the time were still very thin and kind of rough feeling. This feels immensely solid. And granted, this is probably, 45 years of engineering advances, so maybe the plastic's a lot higher quality than it used to be. I don't know if you can hear that, but the wind outside has been nuts. But yeah, but this feels really, really nice. Let's do some size comparisons. Here he is compared to a Bandai SMP Gold Goldrun, I think is his name? Yes, Gold Goldrun. Kind of see just how far we've come in terms of things like engineering and all that, but still it's impressive to see where we started. I don't really have that many other retro toys, but I do have this, a Kenner's Superpower Collection Dark Side. And just for a bit of silly fun, here he is next to Baron Karza of the Micronauts, just because this is the closest I think I have to a Popey metal toy. And of course, here he is next to me. I'm a big man. Although me being a Transformers fan, it's impossible not to look at the Gundam design and not also think of good old Star Saber. Or Victory Saber, given I have all his, all his upgrades on. Which makes sense. Gundam and Star Saber were designed by the same guy, but shows you how good of an artist he was that he was able to take what is essentially the same design and still have it look very distinct.
Now, and if you want to pick this up, I definitely recommend you try and get it for no more than $15. But if you get this, just know you're kind of paying more for the history and experience of building essentially the first ever Gundam. Even the instructions play this up with little design notes and kind of input from the designers about their own experiences. Ain't that cute? Now, if you want a version of the original Gundam with all the modern articulation you greedy kids demand, there is an entry grade kit with a lot more articulation for $10, but the price is still fair enough for me and still fun from a historical point of view that I actually highly recommend it. It's kind of like Missing Link Optimus Prime, where the experience is more so seeing how far we've come while still being a loyal toy experience. Just a lot less expensive. But what about you? How do you feel about this kit? And if you're into Gundam, what are some of your favorite Gundam kits or shows? Let me know in the comments and please subscribe.
Just remembered actually, I do have another Gundam, but it's a bit of a weird one. Someone help me out with this. Yeah, so it's like this scrap metal Gundam. It's properly heavy. It's like really kind of stiff and tough. And I have no idea where it came from. I was gifted to it by a friend of mine. And yeah, it's clearly supposed to be a Gundam. You got the crest, you got the shoulders, you got the knee designs, even I guess the breasts look the right part. So, but I don't know where it came from. There's no kind of company listing or anywhere. Or I would have said fan thing, but it feels way too precise. And at the same time, the person I got this from was not a kind of metal worker of any kind. So I don't know where he got it. If anyone knows who did these kind of scrap metal Gundams, please let me know. I'm curious.